Hey guys. Anyway, uh, I think today, because it's New Year's Eve, I'm just gonna chill today when it comes to the video I'm gonna talk about today. I mean, the topic I'm gonna rant about today. So I'm gonna push more serious projects and so on for next year, which is tomorrow. So you won't have to wait long. But yeah, no, I think today I think today we're just gonna chill out and I'm just gonna bitch about a manga series and an anime that I'm actually quite familiar with and I know quite a bit about. So today I'm gonna rant about Death Note. Now, to those who don't know, actually wait, no, Death Note is like one of the most famous animes in existence. Let me give you the bare bones version. In this anime, there is a smartass named Light Yagami who one day gets a magic notebook from a demon, and when you write someone's name in the notebook, it gives them a heart attack unless you specify it using pen and paper in your imagination and what's realistic. And Light Yagami grows a massive ego, and then he tries to conquer the world and become a new god. So, yeah. That's honestly actually a pretty good premise for like just any. It's honestly a pretty good premise because it plays with because protagonists always have like a moral goal or they want to achieve something in their lifetime. They want to like fight bad guys and whatever. This is a book where the main character literally has the supernatural ability to do that, which is honestly a pretty fun premise. And and for the very early on in Death Note, I think that the author Sugumi Oba Sugumi Oba. Let's just call him the author. I think the author is actually quite good at showing us how Light thinks he's ultra correct and how he's never wrong, and he easily, starts going kind of mad. And I think in the beginning, this series is quite good at what it does. It shows Light trying to, make the world a better place by becoming a authoritarian dictator. It Yeah, just overall in the beginning, it's pretty good. I enjoy reading it because, Light just goes power mad and then he gets caught up by this ultra smart guy. Actually, you know what? After this early bit, it then leads into a bunch. The story itself, I think, just takes a massive turn in quality. Because everybody will be like, "Oh, Death Note is just super smart. It's so clever." I don't think that's actually true. If anything, I think this story is really fucking boring. Here, let me give you a little anecdote. When I was in high school, I had this friend who was basically the sort who thought himself as being ultra intelligent, of being so deep, of being emotionally in tune with himself, and, believed in the importance of IQs and so on. And he also thought that women were, less intelligent than men, just like Light in this book. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that in reality, this friend that I had, he was a narcissist. He was a complete dick. Actually, no, that's a bit rude of me to say. He wasn't a dick. He was just a narcissist, and he was self-centered. He believed that he could do no wrong, and ironically enough, he actually idolized L. The detective who tries to capture Light. But yeah, no, he thought of himself as being this ultra smart person who was like so much better than humanity. He would always have friends with the older students because he thought himself better than his peers. He was a friend with me because he called me his equal, which every bitch knows I'm better than everyone else. But anyway, that's kind of what Death Note is to me. It's sort of this series that is kind of like my friend, and my friend was a manifestation of this series and its supposed cleverness. You know, he thought he was really smart, but in the end, he just came to hurt a lot of people's feelings, destroy friendships, and drove those who cared about him away. And I was one of those he drove away because he just became an arsehole in the end. You know, he didn't even have time to call me, even though we had fucking Discord. Anyway, that little tangent about that friend, that's kind of how I feel about Death Note in general. You know, it starts off with great potential, but then later on it just fully collapses on itself. And I think the major way that it does that is through, well, two things. In the manga, I actually no. Let's skip trying to differentiate between the manga and the anime because they have largely the same plots, but I will make the difference later on because particularly at the ending, which is important to make the distinction. But anyway, broadly throughout the series, the issue with the series is that it's just too up its own ass about its intelligence. Which, you know, I'm fine with the story taking itself seriously. That's fine. But it reaches levels of just, like, insanity and, like, self-righteousness and also this sort of a smug air that just make me not like it. Like, I was, like, reading this, I was just skipping entire pages because I was just so bored. Or when I was watching the anime, you know, I just could not be bothered to watch entire sections of the show. I would just skip because I didn't care. The only thing I was there for was the memes, you know. The light doing the I pick up a chip and then I eat it. That meme. Yeah, that was the only reason I was there for. Just that meme. But then I watched the entire series and, you know, at the time I thought, "Oh my god, it's so smart. It's so good." No, 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 it's not that smart. Instead, what I would instead call it is a bunch of contrived coincidences that because the author just cannot let Light get punished, he is happy to have Light do so much mental gymnastics and do so much, like, jumping the shark moments that it just took me out and I just grew so tired of this series in general because it took itself way too seriously, but it would also not let Light get punished at all. Which, yeah, I get that's the kind of the point where Light is just this hyper intelligent guy, but he really also isn't. Light is a dumbass. He doesn't know how people work. He assumes he's right all the time. And, you know, on the surface, that would make, like, a fine character, you know? Everybody loves a good anti-hero. You know, maybe we could but the problem is that the author, the way he puts this is that he tries to make us root for Light. And in the beginning that I did, but in the end I was like, "L, you should have just fucking arrested him." Because this story, it treats Light like he's so smart that he can do no wrong. And yet you have L, this guy who's capable of literally solving entire cases without too much trouble. He does solve that Light is Kira, which Kira is like the moniker that Light takes as like his public stage name that he uses to like put fear in the hearts of others. But yeah, Light may L figures out that Light is Kira, and he could easily do that because he knows how to prove it. But he never does, and he instead lets Light kill him. Which, what? Why? You know, and then Light goes on this whole spree of just murder and death, of killing all of his former allies and rivals. And, you know, he's basically the edgy 18-year-old who thinks he's so much better than the world. But yeah, so there. broadly, that's what happens in Death Note. And if Death Note stopped there, where Light won, he defeated L, I think people would still have issues with it. No, people would just have issues with it. If I think it would have proven to people right then and there that the story was never really any good because Light just gets away with it in the end. He gets no wrongdoings. He's not punished. He doesn't have any repercussions, no consequences put on him. He's just kind of he's just kind of there. He wins. The story would have ended on a pretty bad note, and I think that would have kind of killed off this series a little bit faster. The only reason why this series is so held up is because of assholes on Reddit or whatever who just think that Death Note is the smartest thing to have ever existed. When it really isn't. It's not I wouldn't even call it a particularly well-written series. Early on, it has a great start, but then it just slowly just tapers off in investment and intrigue. Now, before we head on to the second part of the story, where it's Light trying to continue up the facade, I think there's an important note that needs to be made, which is about the treatment of women in this book. And I do believe that it is quite shameful, to be honest, because women are just kind of treated like props in here. It's kind of like no, wait a minute. Earlier I mentioned that my friend thought that women were just not as intelligent. This book does the same thing. The women are not treated with the same respect or intelligence, or are given the same amount of care as the male characters are. One of the most famous characters in this entire book series is Naomi, who is this, fiance of a FBI agent who was trying to find Kira, but then Light killed him, and Naomi is distraught, and she tries to figure it out. She tries to solve the case. And famously, she does. She figures out that Light is Kira from a conversation with him. She figures it out. And then the story just lets Light make her kill herself via the Death Note. Which, it was just such a tacky way to let Light get away with what he was doing. Naomi, I think, is honestly one of the best characters in the series because she is actually smarter than everyone else in this book because she actually asks questions. She tries to come up with hypotheses. Everybody else is denying the possible supernatural element, but Naomi is instead asking, okay, how would they do it and who would likely do it? And when Naomi figures that out, I was like, oh shit! She's gonna win. She's gonna take him away. They're gonna be lifelong rivals throughout the series. But no, instead, Naomi kills herself because of Light, and it kind of sickens me a little bit when I think about that. That the writer just did that to possibly one of the best characters in this entire story. And then infamously, there's Light's girlfriend. Who is Light's girlfriend again? Let me search it up. Light's girlfriend. Misa Amane. Yeah. Okay, so the second female character that I have a lot of problems with is Misa Amane. And to be honest, she is just the worst fucking character I have ever seen on screen. She is so annoying. She is so unlikable. She is just so... you don't need her in this series. I think it would actually be better if she wasn't in it. But she is, which, is a shame. Because she sucks. Genuinely, she sucks so much. But why does she suck? Okay. Reason number one. She's dumb as fuck. She And I don't mean this as like, oh, as a proof of, okay, maybe Light is smarter. No, I mean this genuinely. Misa is just stupid. She genuinely is so dumb. Because the thing about her is that she's designed as basically Light's fangirl, you know? She's supposed to be there to be his biggest supporter, biggest ally, and whatever. But she never does anything important throughout the series. She's just there as just like the lolly con, if I'm going to be honest. She has an annoying voice and all that. But what makes her so stupid is that she's so trusting of Light, even though he makes it so obvious that he could give less of a shit about her. And yet she's just still in love with this guy. And she will do anything for him. She will even kill other girls if they look at him. Which is like the second problem. She's too yandere-ish. She's basically, how to put this? I feel like there's a sort of like sexist trope in there. I don't know what it is called, but if any of you know, please let me know. Because I feel like Misa's like slavish devotion. I feel like there is a name for it, but I'm just not sure. But she's just so slavishly devoted that it borders on just downright kind of dangerous and creepy. You know, and if she was a real person, she would have been taken in for a psychiatric evaluation. And thirdly, she really is just like really quite useless throughout the series. She doesn't really do anything important. And I genuinely mean that. She doesn't do anything except cause chaos and be an obstacle. And yeah, that's Misa. I don't like her. And then there's the final female, and then yeah, there's the final female character. Here, let me look her up. Light's girlfriend. Light's. Oh yeah. Okay. Then there's Light's other lover, Kiyomi Takada. Kiyomi Takada. Okay, so the thing with Takada is that she's kind of the opposite of Misa in a way. Kiyomi is much smarter. She's beautiful. She's quite intelligent. She's quite perceptive. She understands how the rules of the game work, and she is a believer in Light or the identity of Kira. Except in her case, I actually think that unlike Misa, she has a bit more reasoning to it, as to why she does that. You know, Kiyomi came to believe in Light and his, god of justice ideals all of her own will, you know? She did it of her own free will, and she's a prominent voice and defender of him, which, okay, you know what? I think that's a far better setup for her. But the problem with her is that later on, she just becomes sort of this, like, eye candy and also just like a source for Light to cheat on Misa with. And in the end, she's kind of made to, and I don't like how she's portrayed, but in the end of her story, Kiyomi Light uses the Death Note to make Kiyomi go naked and then burn herself alive, which it's really gross. I'll just leave it at that. It really is just genuinely gross how the women or just any females in the story are treated. So yeah, that's the tangent about how this series just treats women, and it honestly does. It really does just make me think of my friend when I just like talk about this stuff where, the women are treated as dumb, or if they are smart, then they're killed off in gratuitous ways that are honestly even more scary than how the male characters are killed. Like Kiyomi burns herself alive. Naomi is made to commit suicide, and Misa, she just jumps off a building, I think, in the end, which really gross. I'm just gonna say that's fucked. That's really weird. All the other men just get heart attacks, whatever. But it's really gross. I think we need to make that more clear whenever people talk about this series, of just that really gross element. But anyway, uh, then there's the whole Shinigami and what's the name again? Uh, yeah, I forgot what his name is, but the Shinigami, the guy who is basically the one who gives Light the Death Note in the first place, we all remember him. Oh yeah, no, Ryuk. Yeah, when it comes to Ryuk and the Shinigami and all these little rules about the Death Note, I don't honestly care about them. I don't even think the story would be affected much if the Shinigami weren't even introduced or, put in the series. Cause, ooh, that's good. Because if I'm gonna be honest, the whole Shinigami and the supernatural element, if it was just a notebook and Light didn't get any voice of reason on it, I think that would actually be a lot cooler to explore, because it would be Light developing this philosophy. He would be learning on his own still, but he would be developing his own philosophy without like a voice of consciousness, literally being Ryuk, or a voice of encouragement. He would instead have to come to his own conclusions on how to properly use it, without encouragement by Ryuk or disencouragement by others. However, to be honest, the Shinigami element of this story, I don't really care about. I don't think they contribute much to the story, if I'm going to be entirely fair. And it's just like, they're a cool plot element, but at the same time, I just genuinely do not care about them. I don't even think, they don't even really do anything important. They're just there, as sort of like an audience, like they're our eyes, you know. But yeah, no, it's just a quick little tangent. I don't really care about the Shinigami or Ryuk or whoever else is in this. The supernatural element that they possess doesn't really produce much for the plot, which, okay. Now let's get onto a more well-known thing, which is after, well, I'm just going to use the show's terms. Season 1. After season 1, we get into season 2. The halfway point where we think we're just after Light has killed L. Now, that half of the series is hated and more famous because of just how badly written it is. And I agree. It is a badly written, plot afterwards. Like, I already did not like pre L's death how the story was going. But at least then it was like sort of competent. But afterwards, after L dies, the story just completely falls apart. We get introduced to like new characters like Nier, the little boy with the white hair. He is a genuinely worse version of L because, I kind of like L as a character. He has some charisma to him, but Nier just doesn't. He doesn't have any charisma. He has no riz. He has no huzzies or whatever the kids say. But yeah, Nier is just like a way less interesting character. And I cannot for the life of me remember everyone else who was introduced except like the FBI agents. Yeah, I cannot remember them. And what else? Oh yeah, and then there was this whole plot line about like Light having to try. I don't even know what Light is doing. I know he's trying to still secure his position as Kira, but he already did that, and yet he's still deep within the police system, keeping up this facade. If Light was truly that intelligent, he could have just said, "Oh, I'm going into a depressive thing," and he just quits from police life after L's death. That could have been interesting. Because Light would have been finally independent of the police and free to do what he wanted, but no, he still embeds himself in it like an idiot. And What else? Oh yeah, and then we're revealed that someone else has found another Death Note. I forgot what his name was. Okay, wait. Um, who was third Kira? Who was the third Kira? Nope, not this one. Uh, damn. Who is it? The fourth? Is it the fourth Kira? Yeah, Teru Mikami. Okay, that's kind of an also extra problem. Like, I think a good testament to how well a series is that you could remember literally any of the characters, or like remember most of them. With Death Note, I can't remember that many characters. I'm sorry, but anyway, so this is where we're introduced to the fourth Kira, or basically who's our new like Misa, because Misa in the first half of the series just became the sudden like new um Kira who just came about randomly. Mikami, he is the same. He is also he's basically the male version of uh Misa, except he's a massive loser who just has no life and is just slavishly devoted. Yeah, no, he's basically Misa in all ways, except he's even more of a loser, you know? Yeah. Yeah, he's basically a massive loser. He believes in justice so much he will take it literally. He kills anybody who he hates, who he disagrees with, or who has supposedly wronged him. You know, actually, that's kind of a good message for how this series, like, how everybody in the series is a massive loser, or at least those who believe in light, because they're all adults who never stopped being teenagers. That's this entire series. They've never fucking grown up. But anyway, so yeah, Mikami comes about. He starts acting up. Light recruits him. They're about to like kill all the police officers. They're about to kill Nier. They're gonna secure their reign as the new gods of the world. And Light is probably plotting to kill Mikami too, until Nier does the most bullshit, like, ha, un reverse card, I fooled you. Mikami is a plant. I put false pages in Mikami's Death Note, you know? Uh, yeah. It was bullshit at the time, and it still is bullshit today. That out of the most paper thin excuse for Light to be defeated, he finally gets defeated by this child who just replaces one page of his Death Note to be specifically correlated to the day that Nier knew that Light was probably going to try and kill him and the officers. And, well, that happens. And then we have the whole Light laughing crazily thing. He gets shot a bunch of times, and then he runs away. Now, this is where I'm going to make that distinction between the anime and the manga. In the manga, I think they portray his death perfectly. He's portrayed as being a little bitch who lost everything. And Light really is. He's portrayed as pathetic. He's portrayed as low. He's portrayed as dirty. He's portrayed as disgusting, He's finally killed. He's finally given justice. He's ironically enough, being faced with the same justice that he denied thousands of others. Which, honestly, that's the only time I like this manga, when they portray Light as just a little bitch. But in the anime, they instead give Light a far more what's the right term? They give him a far more like angelic, renovated. venerated. They give him a far more venerated look. They make him like have light. They make him see L. He's portrayed as like, oh, he was misunderstood by all. He was actually the good guy. Fuck that. Fuck that. But yeah. So yeah, that's the important distinction that I think made people hate the anime more than like the manga itself. Because that ending shot where we see how Light is portrayed is pathetic. So yeah. So what is there even left to say about Death Note at this point? Everyone's already kind of talked about it. It's already dead in the public consciousness. It's already pretty irrelevant at this point. I just wanted to talk about it today because it truly is one of those series that just takes a pretty good premise and just it shoves its head up its own ass so far it stops being good. When I talked about Spy X Family, my problem is that they had a great premise but they never committed to it. The problem with this one is that it has a great premise, but it just never stops taking itself so seriously, you know? And, it's fine to take yourself seriously, but it just takes it to a frustrating level in this entire series. And, yeah. Death Note, everyone. Anyway, so I still have some time to talk to you guys. I just wanted to say thank you all for all the support you've given me, for all the recent uptick in my channel views, the recent subscribers that have joined. I really do appreciate all of you for all the support that I've been given. I apologize for being such a kind of flaky YouTuber who used to be like slow in my video productions or sometimes not even post anything at all for long stretches of time. I really do apologize for all that, and I am trying to be a little bit better with how I'm making my videos and all that. And I do hope that you guys will be there for that. So, yeah, I really do thank you all for all the support you give me. And let's hope that this channel achieves new heights next year. Oh, Jesus. Anyway, have a nice day, and see you next year.